2 years ago, I was sitting at my kitchen table in Pune, staring at a pile of stuff I had just bought from a mall in Phoenix. A scented candle I did not need, a cushion cover to replace a cushion cover that was perfectly fine, a kitchen gadget still in the box from the last kitchen gadget I bought and never opened. My credit card statement showed 38,000 rupees in charges that month. My savings account had 9,200 rupees in it. I was earning 55,000 rupees a month at the time. I had been earning a decent middle class salary for over 5 years. I had essentially nothing to show for it. That same week, I read an article about a Japanese woman named Fumiko Chiba who wrote a book about a century-old budgeting system called Kakeibo. What caught my attention was not the system itself. It was a detail buried in the article. Chiba mentioned that many Japanese households she studied had been using some version of these financial habits for generations. Grandmothers passing them to mothers, mothers passing them to daughters, families building wealth quietly across decades, using principles so simple they felt almost insulting compared to the complicated finance content I had been consuming on YouTube and Instagram for years. But here is what really hit me. Japan's cultural relationship with money is almost the mirror opposite of urban India's. In India today, we celebrate spending. New iPhone, new car, destination wedding, foreign holiday, foreign branded watch. Congratulations posted on Instagram. Wealth is performed, it is visible, it is meant to be seen. In Japan, wealth is hidden. It is considered tasteless to display it. Financial restraint is not a sacrifice, it is a value. There is even a word for it, tsutsumashi. It roughly means modestly reserved, and it carries deep social respect. The quieter you live, the more admired you are. In urban India in 2026, the quieter you live, the more people assume you are struggling. I started applying these Japanese money principles to my own life one at a time over the following year. I did not change my income. I did not start a side hustle. I did not cancel every subscription or stop eating out entirely. I just changed the philosophy underneath my spending. In 12 months, I went from 9,200 rupees in savings to over 2,18,000 rupees. Same job, same salary, same flat, different operating system. This video is about that operating system. 10 Japanese money habits that build quiet, lasting wealth and that most Indians have never heard of. Every single one of these is applicable to your financial life in India right now in 2026. Regardless of what you earn. Some will feel immediately practical. Others will challenge how you think about money at a level that goes much deeper than budgets and spreadsheets. Let us get into it. Habit 1. Kakeibo, the handwritten household ledger. This is the foundation and it is over 120 years old. Kakeibo was invented in 1904 by Hani Motoko, Japan's first female journalist, at a time when women in Japan had almost no financial autonomy. She designed it as a tool for housewives to take control of family spending, using nothing but a notebook and a pen. The idea is brutally simple. At the beginning of each month, you write down 4 things by hand. How much money is coming in, how much you need for fixed expenses, how much you want to save, how much you have left to spend. Then every single day, you write down what you spent and sort each purchase into one of 4 categories: needs, wants, culture, which includes education, books and experiences, and unexpected expenses. At the end of the month, you review everything and ask yourself 3 questions. How much did I save? What went well? What can I improve next month? That is it. That is the entire system. It sounds almost too simple to work, and that is exactly why it does. Here is what makes Kakeibo different from every budgeting app on your phone. The physical act of writing forces your brain to process each purchase consciously. When you tap UPI and a number flashes on a screen, your brain barely registers it. When you sit down at night and write Zomato for 180 rupees once, your hand is telling your brain something the app never could. You chose to spend 480 rupees on food delivery. That was a want, not a need. Not culture, a want. Practitioners of Kakeibo claim it can reduce unnecessary spending by up to 35%. I did not hit 35% in my first month, but I hit about 22%, which on my income at the time was roughly 12,000 rupees saved in a single month from a notebook that cost 40 rupees. This matters in India specifically because UPI has made spending more frictionless than ever before in human history. India processed over 18 billion UPI transactions in a single month in early 2026. The convenience is genuinely revolutionary, but here is the cost nobody talks about. Frictionless spending means your brain never gets a chance to question the purchase. The transaction is done before the decision is even fully processed. Kakeibo deliberately reintroduces friction back into your spending life. The friction is the feature. Once your brain wakes up to where money is actually going, it does not go back to sleep easily. There is something else about Kakeibo that deserves attention. It uses just 4 spending categories instead of the 15 or 20 most apps use. The simplicity is not a limitation, it is the design. Because the moment you sort a purchase into one of those 4 buckets, you are making a judgment call that no algorithm can make for you. Is this Swiggy order a need or a want? Is this online course actually culture or just a want dressed up in self-improvement clothing? Is this trip to DMart a need, or did you walk in for one thing and walk out with 2,400 rupees of items that just happened to catch your eye? Those questions create what behavioral psychologists call cognitive friction. Friction slows you down. Slowness creates awareness. Awareness changes behavior. Indian financial culture in 2026 is obsessed with reducing friction. UPI everywhere, one click Amazon orders, tap to pay credit cards, EMI on everything. Frictionless sounds efficient. In reality, frictionless spending is why the average urban Indian household underestimates its monthly subscription cost by approximately 3,400 rupees and its impulse spending by nearly 8,000 rupees a month. Kakeibo solves this with a notebook and a pen. That is the whole technology. Habit 2, Mottainai, the deep shame of waste. This concept has no direct Hindi or English translation, and that is part of why most Indians have never encountered it. Mottainai is a feeling. It is the emotional response of regret and discomfort that arises when something useful is wasted, discarded, or undervalued. In Japanese culture, wasting a resource, whether food, fabric, money, or even time, is considered almost morally wrong. Contrast this with urban India in 2026, where waste has been culturally normalized in the rush of consumption. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India estimates Indian households waste approximately 50 kilograms of food per person per year. For a family of 4, that translates to roughly 18,000 to 22,000 rupees in food simply thrown away annually. Add to that the smartphones replaced every 2 years when they could last 5, the clothes worn 3 times and forgotten in the cupboard, the appliances replaced when they could have been repaired by the kabadiwala or a local mechanic for a tenth of the cost. When I started practicing Mottainai, the first thing I did was track food waste for 1 week. I photographed everything I threw away from my fridge and pantry. Half a packet of dhania gone brown, leftover sabzi forgotten in the back, expired curd, a quarter of a chicken from Sunday's biryani. The amount was genuinely shocking. I was throwing away roughly 380 rupees of food per week. That is nearly 20,000 rupees a year from my refrigerator alone. I started meal planning around what I already had instead of what sounded good on the Swiggy menu. I started freezing leftovers the same day instead of telling myself I would eat them tomorrow. I started buying smaller quantities more often instead of bulk shopping things that go bad before I can finish them. Within 3 months, my grocery spending dropped by almost 28%. Not because I was eating less, because I was wasting less, but Mottainai extends far beyond food. It changes how you relate to everything you own. You repair instead of replace. You use something completely before buying the next version. You find a second purpose for items before discarding them. In Japan, there is a tradition called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquered adhesive instead of being thrown away. The repair becomes part of the object's beauty. The crack does not diminish its value, it adds to it. Apply that philosophy to your financial life. The phone that is slightly older but still works, the kurta that is 2 seasons old but still looks beautiful, the car that is paid off and runs perfectly. Mottainai teaches you to see the value in what already serves you instead of reflexively reaching for the upgrade. Habit 3. Hara Hachi Bu. Eat until you are 80% full. This principle comes from Confucian teaching and is practiced widely in Okinawa, Japan, which has one of the highest concentrations of people who live past 100 in the world. The idea is simple. Stop eating when you feel about 80% satisfied rather than eating until you are completely full. Most urban Indians today eat until discomfort. We pile plates at weddings, we order 3 dishes at restaurants when one would have been enough. We treat buffets as a challenge instead of a meal. The financial implications of Hara Hachi Bu are enormous when you translate it beyond food into a general philosophy of enough. It means you do not fill your life to 100% capacity. You leave room in your stomach, room in your wardrobe, room in your budget, room in your schedule. That remaining 20% is not deprivation, it is margin, and margin is where wealth lives. In practical terms, applying Hara Hachibu to spending means leaving roughly 20% of your income untouched. If you earn 80,000 rupees a month after taxes, you live as though you earn 64,000. That 16,000 goes to SIP, PPF, and savings automatically. You do not touch it because it does not exist in your spending reality. Now, here is the gut punch. India's household savings rate fell to just 5.3% of BEP in 2023 to 2024, according to RBI data, the lowest in over 2 decades. That is half of what it was just a few years ago. The Japanese cultural default through practices like Hara Hachi Bu targets 20%. That 14 to 15 percentage point gap between 5% and 20% is the difference between retiring anxious and retiring comfortable. On an 80,000 rupee monthly income, it is the difference between saving 4,000 rupees a month and saving 16,000 rupees a month. Over 25 years at 12% returns, that gap becomes the difference between roughly 75 lakhs and 3 crore. Same salary, different operating system. There is a deeper layer to Hara Hachi Bu that goes beyond the savings rate math. In Okinawa, where the practice originates, it is not taught as a diet hack or financial strategy. It is taught as a form of respect. Respect for the food because you do not waste it by overconsumption. Respect for your body because you do not burden it unnecessarily. Respect for the future because you leave resources available for tomorrow instead of consuming everything today. That word respect is what is missing from urban Indian financial culture in 2026. Most Indians are not respecting their future selves. We are sacrificing tomorrow's wealth for today's comfort with alarming consistency. The average Indian household debt to income situation has reached the point where 1/3 of monthly salaries now go to EMI payments. Credit card interest in India runs at 36 to 48% per annum effective. Personal loans run at 10% to 24%. That debt is borrowed comfort. It is the financial equivalent of eating until you are 120% full and wondering why your stomach hurts. Hara Hachibu applied to money is not just a saving strategy. It is a form of self-respect. It is telling your future self, I left something for you. I did not consume it all. Habit 4. Kaizen. Continuous small improvement. Most Indians know this word from the corporate world. Toyota made it famous as a production philosophy, and every Indian engineering and MBA student has heard it referenced at some point. But in Japanese daily life, Kaizen applies to everything, including finances. The principle is simple. You do not try to overhaul your life in one dramatic move. You improve by 1% repeatedly over a very long period of time. Applied to money, Kaizen looks like this. This month, you reduce your Swiggy and Zomato spending by 10%. Not 50, just 10. Next month, you increase your SIP by 500 rupees. The month after, you cancel one subscription you have not used in 3 months. Then you negotiate one bill. Then you switch one branded product to a generic equivalent. Each change is so small, it feels insignificant. Each change is so easy, it requires almost no willpower. But 12 months of Kaizen produces a completely different financial life than the one you started with, and you barely felt the transition. The reason Kaizen works better than dramatic financial overhauls is neuroscience. Your brain's amygdala, the fear and resistance center, activates when you attempt large changes. It perceives big shifts as threats. That is why most people who radically slash their budget in January have abandoned it by March. The change was too large. The brain resisted. Willpower eventually lost the fight. Kaizen flies under the amygdala's radar. 1% improvements do not trigger resistance. They accumulate unnoticed until one day you look up and realize your savings rate went from 5% to 22% over the course of a year, and you genuinely cannot pinpoint the moment it happened. Habit 5. Ikigai. Your reason for being applied to money. Ikigai roughly translates to reason for living. In recent years, it has become popular in India as a career finding framework, the intersection of what you love, what you are good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. But in Japan, Ikigai is not really about career optimization. It is about having a purpose that gives structure and meaning to your daily life. That purpose can be gardening, cooking for your family, teaching, volunteering, maintaining your health into old age. When you apply Ikigai to money, it transforms your financial life in a way no spreadsheet ever could, because it answers the question that budgets and apps and SIP calculators never ask. What is the money actually for? Most urban Indians accumulate money without purpose or spend money without intention. They save because they are supposed to, or they spend because something looked appealing on Instagram. There is no guiding philosophy underneath the behavior. Ikigai gives you that philosophy. When you know what your money is for, when you have identified the specific life you are building, every spending decision becomes a vote for or against that life. My friend Arjun defined his Ikigai as being present for his daughter's childhood without financial stress and being able to send her to college without taking an education loan. Once he had that clarity, every unnecessary purchase became an obstacle to his reason for being. He did not need willpower to stop impulse buying. He needed purpose. The impulse purchases did not just feel expensive after he found his Ikigai, they felt irrelevant. Habit 6. Wabi Sabi. Finding beauty in imperfection. This is one of the most profound Japanese aesthetic and philosophical concepts. And it is the direct antidote to the consumer culture that dominates urban Indian spending today. Wabi Sabi is the appreciation of things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. A cracked teacup that still holds chai. A wooden table with scratches that tell the story of 100 family dinners. A kurta with a small mend that reminds you how long you have loved it. In urban India in 2026, imperfection has become a reason to replace. A scratch on your phone screen, you start checking the latest model. A scuff on your shoes, you order new ones. The sofa cushion is slightly flattened, time to browse pepper fry. The consumer economy depends on your dissatisfaction with things that still work perfectly well. Wabi Sabi invites you to find satisfaction in them instead. The financial impact of this mindset shift is staggering when you calculate it over time. The average urban Indian middle class household spends roughly 1,20,000 rupees a year on the categories most driven by aesthetic dissatisfaction: clothes, home furnishings, consumer electronics, and appliances. If Wabi Sabi reduce that spending by even 25% by helping you keep things longer, repair instead of replace, and appreciate what you already own, that is 30,000 rupees a year redirected. At 12% compounded over 25 years, that single mindset shift builds roughly 45 lakh in additional wealth from a philosophy of finding beauty in what you already have. Habit 7, Osoji, the annual deep clean and financial reset. In Japan, Osoji is a tradition performed at the end of each year. Families thoroughly clean their entire home, discard what no longer serves them, and enter the new year with physical and mental clarity. It is not just spring cleaning, it is a ritual of letting go. Indians actually do something similar before Diwali. We clean the house deeply, but we rarely apply the same practice to our finances. Applied to money, Osoji becomes an annual financial reset. Once a year, ideally in March to April, around the financial year end, or in October around Diwali, you sit down and conduct a complete audit of your financial life. Every subscription, every recurring charge, every insurance policy, every investment allocation, every loan and EMI balance, every auto debit, every credit card auto renewal. You review all of it. You cancel what is not serving you. You renegotiate what can be lowered. You realign everything with your current goals. Most people set up financial systems and then never revisit them. Subscriptions pile up. Insurance premiums quietly creep up at renewal. Mutual fund allocations drift away from targets. An annual Osoji catches all of it. In my first financial Osoji, I found nearly 4,200 rupees a month in charges I had completely forgotten about or no longer needed. That was about 50,000 rupees a year quietly draining from my account while I was not paying attention. A Netflix I never watched anymore, a gym membership I had stopped using 6 months ago, an online masterclass subscription auto-renewed for the second year in a row, a health app I downloaded once and forgot. Osoji is not deprivation, it is taking back control of the financial life that you actually want to live. Habit 8, Chokin, save before you spend. Chokin literally means savings. But in Japanese financial culture, it represents a specific habit. You save before you spend, not whatever is left over at the end of the month. The first thing that happens when money enters your account is that a portion of it leaves immediately into a savings or investment vehicle. The spending happens with whatever remains. This is the opposite of how most urban Indians operate today. The typical Indian salary pattern is earn, spend, and hope something is left to save at the end of the month. The Japanese Chokin model is earn, save, then spend what remains. The difference sounds semantic. It is not, it is structural. When saving comes first, your spending naturally contracts to fit the remaining amount. When saving comes last, there is never anything remaining because spending expands to fill whatever is available. Parkinson's law applies to money exactly the way it applies to time. Let me show you what Chokin looks like in real rupees with a specific example. Rohan earns 90,000 rupees a month after taxes. Under the typical Indian pattern, he spends throughout the month and saves whatever is left. In practice, nothing is ever left. His spending expands to fill his income like gas filling a room. His savings rate hovers around 5%, roughly 4,500 rupees a month, only because his EPF takes a small percentage before he sees his paycheck. Now, imagine Rohan implements Chokin on the morning after his salary credit. An automatic SIP transfer moves 18,000 rupees, which is 20% of his salary, into a combination of an equity mutual fund, SIP, a PPF, and a high interest savings account. He never sees that money in his spending account. His spending reality becomes 72,000 rupees. He adjusts within about 2 months because the human brain is remarkably adaptable when the option to spend simply does not exist. After 1 year, Rohan has saved and invested over 2,16,000 rupees instead of the roughly 54,000 his old approach produced. Over 25 years, at 12% average returns, Rohan's Chokin habit produces approximately 3 crore 4 lakh rupees. His old habit produces roughly 76 lakh. Same salary, same city, same life. The only variable is the order of operations: save then spend versus spend then hope. Japanese households have practiced this ordering for generations. The vast majority of Japanese credit cards are set to auto-pay the full balance every month by default. Carrying a revolving balance is culturally unusual in Japan. In India, in 2026, India's total credit card outstanding crossed 2,80,000 crore rupees, and about half of credit card users carry a balance month to month at interest rates of 36 to 48% per annum. The structural difference between Japan and India is not income. The difference is sequence. Save first, spend second. That is Chokin. Habit 9, Shinrin Yoku and the practice of free living. In Japan, Shinrin Yoku means forest bathing. It is the practice of spending quiet, contemplative time in nature as a form of stress reduction and mental restoration. It costs nothing. The broader principle it represents is something I have come to think of as free living. The deliberate choice to build your leisure, social life, and recreation around activities that do not cost money. In urban India in 2026, leisure has become almost synonymous with spending. Fun costs money, relaxation costs money, socializing costs money. A night out at a cafe, a weekend trip to Lonavala, a movie at PVR, a concert ticket, a shopping outing framed as entertainment. The average urban Indian middle-class household spends roughly 40,000 to 60,000 rupees a year on what gets categorized as entertainment and eating out. Japanese culture offers a fundamentally different model. Walking in a park, cooking together, reading, gardening, temple visits, tea prepared mindfully at home. The richest moments of daily life happen without a transaction. When I started building my weekends around activities that cost nothing, walks at the local lakeside, cooking elaborate meals with friends at home instead of meeting at a restaurant, library visits, reading at a public park, my entertainment spending dropped by over 50% in 3 months. I did not miss anything. The quality of my weekends actually improved because I stopped equating fun with consumption and started equating it with presence. Habit 10, Hansei, honest self-reflection. This is the last habit and it is the one that holds all the others together. Hansei is a Japanese practice of sincere, rigorous self-reflection. It is not self-criticism. It is not guilt. It is an honest examination of what you did, what went well, what did not, and what you will do differently going forward. In Japanese schools, children practice Hansei. It is embedded in the culture. You do not reflect because you failed. You reflect because reflecting is how you grow. Apply to finances. Hansei is the monthly review that closes the Kakeibo loop. You sit down with your notebook on the last day of the month, look at what you spent, look at what you saved, and ask yourself three questions without judgment. Did I meet my savings goal? What purchases brought me genuine value? What would I do differently next month? This habit, this 10-minute monthly practice of honest financial reflection, is the most important habit on this list because it is the mechanism by which all the other habits actually improve over time. Mottainai gets sharper because you notice the waste. Hara Hachi Bu gets easier because you see where you overfilled. Kaizen gets direction because you identify the next 1% improvement. Without Hansei, every other habit on this list stays the same level forever. With Hansei, they compound. And that word, compound, is where I want to leave you. Everything I have described in this video, every one of these 10 habits operates on the same principle that compound interest does. Small, consistent inputs repeated over time, producing results that are wildly disproportionate to the effort. A 40 rupee notebook and 10 minutes a day of Kakeibo does not sound like a wealth building strategy. Neither does leaving 20% of your plate empty or finding beauty in a scratched table. But these tiny behaviors, stacked on top of each other, practiced day after day, month after month, year after year, produce something that no income level alone can produce. They produce a relationship with money that is grounded, intentional, and sustainable. The wealthiest people I have studied, and I do not mean the flashiest or the highest earning. I mean the ones with the deepest financial security and the least financial anxiety, share one trait. They understand how money works at a fundamental level. They understand compound interest. They understand the difference between an asset and a liability. They understand that a rupee saved is worth more than a rupee earned because it arrives without tax, without effort, and without burnout. That understanding has a name: financial literacy. It is the soil that every one of these Japanese habits grows in. Without it, Kakeibo is just a notebook. Mottainai is just a word. Chokin is just a concept you heard about in a YouTube video and forgot by next week. With financial literacy, these habits become a system, a quiet, boring, profoundly effective system that builds wealth the same way a Japanese garden grows. Slowly, intentionally, with every element placed for a reason, nothing wasted, nothing rushed, nothing performed for an audience. The woman I was 2 years ago, sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by things I did not need, bought with money I did not have, carrying a credit card balance that made my stomach hurt every time I opened the bank app. That woman did not need more income. She needed a different philosophy. She needed to learn that wealth is not built by earning more, it is built by understanding more. The habits came after the understanding. The results came after the habits. Japan figured this out a long time ago. The principles are over a century old in some cases. They survived world wars, economic collapses, natural disasters, and complete cultural transformations. They work because they are built on something deeper than tactics. They are built on respect for money as a resource, respect for yourself as the steward of that resource, and the quiet discipline to protect both. You do not need a bigger paycheck to start building wealth in India. You might already earn enough. You just need a notebook, a pen, and the willingness to pay attention to where your money actually goes. That is where it starts. That is where it always starts. Drop a comment below and tell me which one of these 10 habits resonated with you the most. And if you have already been practicing any version of these without knowing the Japanese name, I genuinely want to hear about it. I read every single comment. Subscribe to Shivani Talks Money for more real personal finance content every week. And if you want to know what is the trap every Indian generation is falling into, the brutal truth nobody is telling you, go watch my next video right here. Take care of your money. I will see you in the next one.